Let's talk about ambition. It's that fire inside us, right? It's the engine that drives progress and gets us to do amazing things. But it can also feel like this constant nagging pressure, a voice in our head that's just never satisfied. It's why we burn the midnight oil, but it can also be the source of some pretty deep anxiety. So the big question is, how do we use this incredible force for good without letting it completely burn us out? Well, in this explainer, we're going to get right into the psychology of our drive and figure out how to build a new, much healthier relationship with our own ambition.
And this quote right here, it just nails it. It perfectly captures that central struggle. We need ambition. Without it, we just stop growing. But when it's unchecked, that sharp edge starts to cut into our happiness, our relationships, and even our ability to just enjoy the life we're working so hard for. It stops being a tool and starts feeling more like a weapon we've turned on ourselves.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with the ambition paradox. Then we'll pop the hood and look at what's really running your motivational engine. From there, we'll redefine what that finish line even looks like, give you a practical toolkit for a drive that lasts, and finally, we'll put it all together to reimagine what ambition can be. Okay, let's dive into our first section. Here, we're really going to tackle a question that I think a lot of us have wrestled with. Why does the very thing we need for success so often end up being a major source of stress and feeling like we're just not good enough? A study on high-achieving high school students really shines a light on this. Researchers found that all this insane pressure, from parents, teachers, you name it, often led to them completely losing interest in what they were studying. So what did they do? They'd procrastinate, then cram, which, surprise, surprise, led to burnout and a whole host of mental health issues. Sounds familiar? It's a pattern so many of us drag right into adulthood, where the pressure just seems to get even higher. That drive to succeed can ironically make us less effective and totally suck the joy out of our work. And this, right here, is the heart of the paradox. When our ambition is just running wild, we get stuck in this fantasy about some perfect future where everything's great and all our problems are solved. The dangerous side effect of that obsession? We start looking at our actual life, our current job, our real relationships, the things we've actually accomplished, with this kind of contempt. It's like we're just sitting in a waiting room for our real life to begin. And that focus on the future just blinds us to all the joy and opportunities that are right here, right now. So what is really going on under the hood here? What's powering this engine? And why does it sometimes feel like it's staring us right off a cliff? Let's get into the next section and see how psychology can help us figure out the why behind our drive. Okay, to really get a grip on ambition, we have to talk about this amazing framework called self-determination theory, or SDT. See, for decades, we kind of thought of motivation as just carrots and sticks, but SDT totally flipped that idea on its head. It argues that the quality of our motivation is way more important than the quantity. It's not about having more drive, it's about having the right kind of drive. And this is where it gets really interesting, because SDT splits motivation into two main types. On one side, you have autonomous motivation. This is when you do something because you genuinely want to. It aligns with your values, it feels like a choice, it's coming from inside you. On the other side, you've got controlled motivation. This is when you feel pushed by a deadline, by the fear of what people will think, by chasing a paycheck or social media likes. One energizes you. The other, over time, just drains you. So, how do we get more of that good stuff, that autonomous motivation? Well, SDT says it all comes down to feeding three universal psychological needs. The first one is autonomy. This is our fundamental need to feel like we're in the driver's seat of our own lives, that our actions are our own. Think about it. It's the difference between choosing to work late on a project because you're fascinated by it versus having to work late because your boss told you to. Huge difference, right? The second key ingredient is competence. This is that need to feel like we're good at what we do, that we can handle challenges and grow our skills. It's that awesome feeling you get when you finally nail a tough presentation or solve a problem that's been bugging you for weeks. Every time you learn something new, you're feeding this need, and that builds the confidence to take on the next big thing.
And the third one, which is just as crucial, is relatedness. This is our deep human need to connect with other people, to feel like we belong, to care for others, and feel cared for. It's why pulling off a big win with a team you love feels so much better than succeeding all alone. When these three needs, autonomy, competence, and relatedness, are being met, our motivation just soars. But when they're not, that's when we struggle. And if you think back to that high achiever's burden, you can see these needs were totally being starved.
Okay, so now that we know what fuels our motivational engine, let's talk about where we're actually pointing it. Because it turns out not all goals are created equal, especially when it comes to satisfying those three core needs we just talked about. So here's the bottom line. Goals are either intrinsic or extrinsic. Intrinsic goals, things like personal growth, building deep relationships, contributing to your community, they're satisfying in and of themselves. The reward is baked right into the activity. They directly feed our needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Extrinsic goals, though, are all about external validation, money, fame, status. Now, they're not automatically bad, but research shows again and again that they're just less fulfilling. Chasing them often means we end up sacrificing our autonomy and even hurting our relationships, which starves those core needs. And this idea of invisible wealth is such a brilliant way to think about this. It reminds us that being truly rich is about so much more than just your bank account. It's about the wealth of your health, both physical and mental, the wealth of your knowledge, the wealth of your time, energy, and experiences, and maybe most important of all, the wealth of your relationships with others and with yourself. Being ambitious about all of these things is what creates a truly balanced and sustainable kind of success. All right, let's get to the really practical stuff. The theory is great, but what can you actually do when the pressure's on? This section is all about tools you can start using today to protect your sanity and keep your drive going for the long haul. The first tool, and honestly, it might be the most important, is a big mindset shift. Instead of being completely obsessed with the finish line, you gotta practice finding joy in the process itself. This means celebrating the small wins along the way, acknowledging your progress. It's about setting process goals, like, I'm gonna spend 1 hour learning this new thing, not just outcome goals. Shifting from destination obsession to journey appreciation, that can make a massive difference in your stress levels. Okay, this one is huge. A massive part of protecting your energy is setting boundaries. And a super powerful way to start is just by internalizing this simple phrase. We live in a world that basically screams at us to say yes to everything. But every yes is a no to something else. And a lot of the time, that something else is our own peace of mind. Learning to say no cleanly without feeling guilty or needing a 10-minute excuse is a game-changing skill for managing your energy. But sometimes you do need to explain your boundary a little more. And to do that without starting a fight, you can use this simple 4-step formula. It's amazing because it keeps the focus on your feelings and your needs instead of making it sound like you're blaming the other person. For example, I feel overwhelmed when I get work texts after 8 p.m. because I really need that time to disconnect. What I need is for us to stick to email for anything non-urgent after hours. See, it's clear, it's not aggressive, and it's constructive. And finally, one of the most powerful ways to balance out that relentless push of ambition is gratitude. Seriously, just taking a minute each day to appreciate what you already have, your health, your friends, things you've already accomplished. It shifts your whole focus from what you're lacking to what you possess. This isn't about getting lazy, it's about gaining perspective. It pulls your brain out of that constant not enough mode and makes the whole journey feel a lot more joyful. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. With this deeper understanding of our own psychology and a new set of tools in our back pocket, we can really start to build a new vision for ambition. One that feels less like a frantic chase and more like a thoughtful cultivation of a life that actually means something to us. So the path forward really boils down to a 3-step practice. First, you have to understand your why. Be honest with yourself. Is your drive coming from within, or is it coming from outside pressure? Second, align your goals. Actively choose to focus on those intrinsic goals that are actually going to feed your needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And third, you have to actively protect your well-being. Make things like mindfulness, gratitude, and setting boundaries non-negotiable parts of your routine. And this is what we're aiming for. Healthy ambition isn't about winning at all costs. It's about finding that sweet spot, that balance. It's a constant practice of shaping your drive to fit who you really are and what you truly value. That way, it fires you up without burning you out. And we'll end with a thought from the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, but I've kind of reframed it here as a question for you. If a person's worth really is no greater than their ambitions, then what is your ambition truly worth? Is it aimed at things that will ultimately leave you feeling hollow? Or is it aimed at a life that's rich in growth, connection, and genuine happiness? That's a question only you can answer.